Hey scholars, today we're going to learn about identifying positive and negative numbers on a number line and also learning about opposites. So we're going to read the front page together and I'm going to demonstrate to you the concept on the number lines for you to take notes. So here is a number line below and it is labeled with positive and negative numbers. As you can see here on the right, there are some positive numbers. And on the left, there are negative numbers. The number 4 is positive, so its location is 4 units to the right of 0 on number line. So I'm going to label that. If I go from 0 and go right 4 units, I will get to a positive 4. The number negative 1 and 1/10 is negative, so its location is 1 and 1/10 units to the left of 0 on number line. So let's demonstrate that, where if I go from 0, I'm going to go 1 unit, an extra tenth, so a little bit to the left of negative 1, to get a number of negative 1 and 1/10. So we're going to go over the idea of opposites. We say that the opposite of 8 and 3/10 is negative 8 and 3/10, and that the opposite of negative 3/2 is equal to 3/2. So any pair of numbers that are equally far from 0 are called opposites. So for example, in this next number line below, we see that points A and B are opposites because they are both 2 and 5/10 of a unit away from 0, even though A is to the left of 0 and B is to the right of 0. So to demonstrate that is the following. I see B is 2 and 5/10 and it's positive because it's 2 units and an extra 5/10 away from 0. And then I see as well that A is negative 2 and 5/10 because it's 2 units to the left of 0 and an extra 5/10 to make negative 2 and 5/10. And we call both those numbers opposites because they're the same distance from 0. Similarly, I can think about that when identifying numbers by seeing that I see C is 4 and 5/10 away from 0, so it's positive 4 and 5/10. And if I want to find its opposite, essentially I'm going to have the same number but the different sign to be negative. And if I want to find that on my number line, I'm going to count to negative 4 and 5/10. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 units, and an extra 5/10 to be right here, and that will give me negative 4 and 5/10. So the rule of thumb here is that if you have a positive number, its opposite will be negative. And if you have a negative number, its opposite will be positive. And then if you have 0, the opposite of 0 is the same number itself. And we're going to explore that concept by looking at some thermometers on the back of the front page and finding out their readings, and then also finding out their opposites. I'm going to model for you A and B, and you are going to try the next few thermometers on your own. And what we're going to do is the following. We're going to have 5 thermometers. The first 4 thermometers show temperatures in Celsius, and our goal is to write the temperatures in the blanks. So to kind of help us think through this, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to label the 0 level for all of them on all thermometers. So let me change this to a blue color, because that's our reference point. Because we know that in thermometers, if you're above the 0, you're going to be positive. If you're below the 0, you're going to be negative. So I'm going to reference that everywhere so I know what I'm looking at. And that'll help me know right away if it's going to be a positive sign or a negative sign. Therefore, I see that A is going to be positive, B will be negative, it's below, C is positive, and D is negative. Now that I know my signs, I can easily find a number reading I'm going to get by looking at the number scale of the thermometer. I see that A it's at 1. I know it's above the thermometer 0, therefore it's going to be a positive 1 for my answer here for A. So it's positive 1 degrees Celsius, using a plus sign for positive. For B, I see it's on the negative side of the thermometer, below the 0, and I see it says negative 2 right here. So I'm going to write down the temperature reading as negative 2 degrees Celsius. I want you to try C and D now, but notice how C and D are both at points between numbers. And so I see that C is between 3 and 4, and D is between 0 and negative 1. So using that knowledge, what do you think the temperatures will be for C and D? Pause here so you have some time to think, and then check your answer after the pause. So C will be positive 3.5, or 3 5/10, because it's between 3 and 4. And then D will be negative because it's below sea level, but it will be negative 5/10 because if I'm between 0 and 1, that's going to be giving me a 5/10, and I know it's negative because it's below the 0 point. Now my next part here says, the last thermometer is missing some numbers, write them in the boxes. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for you to try on your own. I'm going to label the 0 here, and you have to ask yourself, what scale is it using for each tick mark? And once you find out that scale, you're going to ask yourself, how is it changing? And then use that knowledge to help you decide what number should be in each box. Pause here so you have some time to work before moving on. Alright, you should see that each box is changing by a value of 5. It's counting by 5s. So if I were to count from 0 upward, it would be 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And then counting down from 0 would be 0, negative 5, negative 10, negative 15, and negative 20. So those will be the answers inside each box. So I'm going to write down these in red just so you can see if they're negative values. So negative 10 and negative 15. So the last activity for this page is we want to find the opposites of each temperature thermometer. And you're going to write them all at the bottom of each thermometer for the first 4. So if my first thermometer said positive 1 degree Celsius, if I want to find the opposite, I do the opposite sign. Positive 1 has an opposite of negative 1. So my opposite here I'll write here is negative 1 degrees Celsius. For thermometer 2, it says negative 2 degrees Celsius. I know an opposite of a negative number is a positive number, so therefore this opposite will be positive 2 degrees Celsius. Using that knowledge, decide what the opposite would be for thermometer C and thermometer D. Pause here and continue the video when you are done with the problem. So the third thermometer will be a negative 3 5/10 degrees Celsius, and the fourth thermometer will be a positive 5/10 of degrees Celsius. Essentially, your opposite will be the opposite sign from the given number. The last 2 problems on the notes are problems that you to do on your own. This is just review. And I'm going to give you time to work on each one after reading it. And then you're going to check your work with the video after you have some time to work. So let's read number 2 together. Elena says that the thermometer shown here reads -2 and 5/10 degrees Celsius because the line of the liquid is above -2 degrees Celsius. Jada says that it is -1 and 5/10 degrees Celsius. Do you agree with either one of them? Explain your reasoning. You need to decide the following in your response. Is this temperature -2.5 or -2 and 5/10, which is what Elena is saying? Or is temperature -1 and 5/10, which is what Jada says? So, decide what you think it is, write a response, and then check your work after pausing in the video. Your response should say that Jada is correct. Jada is correct because the temperature is between -1 and -2, and -1 and 5/10 is between those two numbers. Therefore, that is why Jada is correct. We have one more question for today's lesson, which is a review from yesterday's lesson. I'm going to read it with you together, and then you're going to answer it using a number line to support your reasoning. One morning, the temperature in Phoenix, Arizona was 8 degrees Celsius, and the temperature in Portland, Maine was 12 degrees Celsius cooler. I'm going to highlight this word cooler because that's super important to reference when you solve this problem. What was the temperature in Portland? And then second question, what is the opposite of the temperature in Portland? So here's what you're going to do in this problem on your own. You're going to draw a vertical number line on your paper. You're going to reference 0. And you're going to draw some tick marks on it to help you label above and below 0. And you're going to use that number line to help you find the temperature in Portland. Then when you find a temperature, you're going to find out what the opposite is. So pause here to work on this example, and then continue the video when you are done with the question. Here is the work and the answer that should be on your paper. You should have drawn a number line where you labeled 8 degrees Celsius, which is 8 units above 0. Because you want to find a temperature that is 12 degrees cooler, you should have counted down 12 units to get to -4, which is 4 units below 0. And then you should have written this exemplar response. The temperature is in Portland is -4 degrees Celsius, and the opposite of -4 degrees is +4. Ask any questions you may have from this lesson, and then you're going to take your X ticket for this lesson online.